All right, this is our last listening lesson, and we're again going to cover part 4. So let's get into it. So in this section, we're going to be talking about keeping up with the speaker. All right, keeping up with the speaker is very important because if you do not keep up with the speaker, you can miss a lot of crucial information. All right, the activities that we're going to look at is table completion, understanding the context and the format of part 4. So understanding part 4 in general, we'll also go a little bit deeper in understanding part 4. Identify the structure of academic talk, identifying signposting expressions. So signposting expression is when if the examiner is going to another point or what he's going to talk about next. That helps signposting expressions tell you what is going to be talking about. And we're going to do a little bit, we're going to do practice of listening part 4. All right, let's look at our first activity. What is listening part 4, right? You are going to hear your tutor give a talk. So I'm going to actually give a talk right now. Okay, and I want you to do this exercise with me. All right, so we are gonna talk about this today. All right, here we go. So I'm going to read this to you. So you're going to hear your tutor give a short talk on IELTS listening part 4. Before you listen, answer the following questions about the task below. What question type is this? What question type is this, right? Looking at the instructions, what can you write in the gaps? Okay, looking before and after each gap, which part of speech are missing? How do you know? And can you predict any possible answers based on what you already know? So let's just do this activity. I'm going to read it out to you and then you will write. So again, reading the instruction very carefully, no more than 2 words or a number. All right, fill in the gaps. I'm going to read this to you and then you're going to fill in the gaps here. Welcome to today's talk, part 4 of the listening section of IELTS. We'll look at its style, format, as well as share some key tips for preparing to listen. First, let's look at the style of listening. You will listen to a monologue, one speaker delivering a lecture on a academic topic. Don't worry, you do not need to know anything about the topic itself. Remember, this is not the test of subject knowledge, but your ability to listen carefully to spoken English. Moving on to the format of part 4 now, you will see that as with all parts of the listening test, you have 10 questions to answer. These questions could be all of the same type. For example, 10 note completion questions, or you could get a combination of question types. This mix of question types include, but not limited to, multiple choice, short answer, or other completion questions. Please note that all of your preparation must be done in advance of hearing the audio. The main difference in format of part 4 compared to part 1 to 3 of the test is that there is no break in the middle of the audio. Test takers will not get time in the middle of the recording to read through the next set of questions. Finally, the key advice in dealing with part 4 is to use the preparation time to identify the keywords to listen out for. To know what the speaker is moving on from question to question, it is important that you keep up with the speaker so that you do not miss any questions. So you understand that keeping up with the speaker is going to really, really help you to get all the answers correctly. All right. Working with your partner, what did you find it difficult, easy? That part you can actually leave. Let's just look at the answers for this part. So the answer is number 1 is lecture, university style lecture you're going to listen to. Number 2, tips and advice. You don't need any subject knowledge on the topic, right? You must have gotten that. There will be 10 questions. Okay, there will be 10 questions. You can write a word or you can write a number here. So there will be 10 questions in this part. Then it says multiple choice, short answer questions, or completion questions. There is, once the speaker starts, there is no break. Okay, and the last one, use the preparation time to fully prepare the answers of all the questions. So preparation time is very, very crucial, but it's not much. You have to be careful. Practice, very important. Okay, this is the script that I just read to you, the transcript you can read. And this is important, actually. It's a piece of advice for you as well if you want to understand more about IELTS Part 4, IELTS Listening Part 4. This is the way, this is a place to go. Read this screen again if it doesn't make sense to you, all right? All right, let's look at signposting expression. Now, signposting expressions really help you. Coherent speakers use signposting words and phrases which indicate the structure, content, and progression of their talk. For example, firstly, secondly, today I would like to discuss. These are all signposting expressions. Listen to the talk again for signposting expressions to complete the table below. So I'm going to read it out again. And you're going to see when I'm using signposting expression to introduce the talk, transitioning from one area to focus to the other, usually in the middle sections of the task, and closing. And when am I closing the talk as well? So let's do it again. Welcome to today's talk about Part 4 of listening section of IELTS. We will look at its style, format, as well as share some key tips for preparing to listen. First, let's look at the style of the listening. You will listen to a monologue, one speaker delivering a lecture on an academic topic. Do not worry, you do not need to know anything about the topic itself. Remember, this is not a test of your subject knowledge, but of your ability to listen carefully to spoken English. Moving on to the format of Part 4 now, you'll see that as with all parts of the listening test, you have 10 questions to answer. These questions could be all at the same type, for example, 10 note completion questions, or you could get a combination of question types. This mix of question types include, but is not limited to multiple choice, short answer, or other completion questions. Please note that all of your preparation must be done in advance of hearing the audio. The main difference in the format of Part 4 compared to Part 1 to 3 of the test is that there is no break in the middle of the audio. Test takers will not get time in the middle of the recording to read through the next set of questions. Finally, the key advice in dealing with Part 4 is to use preparation time to identify the keywords to listen out for. To keep when the speaker is moving on from question to question, it's important that you keep up with the speaker so that you don't miss any questions. All right. So you might have written down the signpost question. The purpose of this activity is really to understand when a speaker is starting a conversation, in the middle, how he's transitioning from ideas to ideas or question to question, and how he's concluding the talk as well. All right. So let's look at the answers here. Signposting expression today. Welcome to today's talk. It's introducing, right? Thank you for coming. It could be, I mean, in this case, it was welcome to today's talk, but it could be thank you for coming. My name is this, blah, blah, blah. He's starting. And today I'm going to talk about all of these signpost expressions introducing the talk, right? Transitioning from one area or of focus to the other, usually in the middle sections of the talk. In this case, it was first. Let's look at moving on to, but there could be other expressions like let's now look at another thing. If I can draw your attention to another aspect, the next issue, and now let's turn to all of these things will be used when the speaker is transitioning. When it comes to closing the talk, in this case, we had finally, but some of the other expressions include to sum up, in conclusion, to conclude, to summarize. It is clear from what we talked about overall in summary in this lecture. We talked about all of these will kind of indicate that the examiner is coming in, and so you have to be careful. For keeping up with the speaker is very important. Okay. All right, let's look at this one. Getting ready to listen. So working with a partner, obviously this is an online course, so you will be working on your own. Take 5 seconds to survey question Part 4, question 31 to 40. What can you tell from your first glance at the questions? Consider the following. So for example, one, and you must have here your questions here. So first question it talks about the Outlook, right? So Outlook, what are the things you can look at? Question sets, question types, any keywords. Spend a little longer with different question sets. Consider what keywords you should listen out for to identify when the speaker has moved on. The signposting expressions below are taken from the audio part 4. Write them on the margins of the question sheet where you'd expect to hear these expressions. All right, let's do the first activity here. For this one, you have table plus you have multiple choice. So you have a combination, right? So from 31 to 35, you have to complete a table. You've got columns. Please read the headings, very important. The main heading is time perspective. Let's just evaluate what it's like. You will not have much time, but let's just evaluate what we can. Time zone. You've got time zone, you've got outlook, you've got features and consequences. In the time zone, you have 3 time zones, past, present, future. Outlooks, you've got positive. So basically, they're blanks as well. So you have positive. I'm assuming the next one is negative. You've got fatalistic, you've got hedonistic, and you've got fatalistic again. And you might have another column. Features and consequences. What are the features and consequences? You have to listen for that. I'm just getting a glance and understanding what kind of questions I may have. In terms of multiple choice questions, we are all present hedonists when we're looking for a time, right? American boys drop out of school at a higher rate than girls because, I mean, we're looking for a reason. Why do they drop out? What do they do that the girls don't do? Present-oriented children. What do they do? You might have to make some notes here. If Americans had an extra day per week, they would spend doing what? So there are 3 things that we mentioned. Understanding how people think about time can help us do what? All right, so let's listen to this and let's do this activity together.
Section 4. You'll hear a talk on the topic of time perspectives. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Today, I'm going to be talking about time. Specifically, I'll be looking at how people think about time and how these time perspectives structure our lives. According to social psychologists, there are 6 ways of thinking about time, which are called personal time zones. The first 2 are based in the past. Past positive thinkers spend most of their time in a state of nostalgia, fondly remembering moments such as birthdays, marriages, and important achievements in their life. These are the kinds of people who keep family records, books, and photo albums. People living in the past negative time zone are also absorbed by earlier times, but they focus on all the bad things, regrets, failures, poor decisions. They spend a lot of time thinking about how life could have been. Then, we have people who live in the present. Present hedonists are driven by pleasure and immediate sensation. Their life motto is to have a good time and avoid pain. Present fatalists live in the moment too, but they believe this moment is the product of circumstances entirely beyond their control. It's their fate, whether it's poverty, religion, or society itself. Something stops these people from believing they can play a role in changing their outcomes in life. Life simply is, and that's that. Looking at the future time zone, we can see that people classified as future active are the planners and go-getters. They work rather than play and resist temptation. Decisions are made based on potential consequences, not on the experience itself. A second future-orientated perspective, future fatalistic, is driven by the certainty of life after death and some kind of a judgment day when they will be assessed on how virtuously they have lived and what success they have had in their lives. Okay, let's move on. You might ask, how do these time zones affect our lives? Well, let's start at the beginning. Everyone is brought into this world as a present hedonist. No exceptions. Our initial needs and demands, to be warm, secure, fed, and watered, all stem from the present moment. But things change when we enter formal education. We're taught to stop existing in the moment and to begin thinking about future outcomes. But did you know that every 9 seconds, a child in the USA drops out of school? For boys, the rate is much higher than for girls. We could easily say, well, boys just aren't as bright as girls. But the evidence doesn't support this. A recent study states that boys in America, by the age of 21, have spent 10,000 hours playing video games. The research suggests that they'll never fit in the traditional classroom, because these boys require a situation where they have the ability to manage their own learning environment. Now, let's look at the way we do prevention education. All prevention education is aimed at a future time zone. We say, don't smoke or you'll get cancer. Get good grades or you won't get a good job. But with present-orientated kids, that just doesn't work. Although they understand the potentially negative consequences of their actions, they persist with the behavior because they're not living for the future. They're in the moment right now. We can't use logic, and it's no use reminding them of potential fallout from their decisions or previous errors of judgment. We've got to get in their minds just as they're about to make a choice. Time perspectives make a big difference in how we value and use our time. When Americans are asked how busy they are, the vast majority report being busier than ever before. They admit to sacrificing their relationships, personal time, and a good night's sleep for their success. 20 years ago, 60% of Americans had sit-down dinners with their families, and now only 20% do. But when they're asked what they would do with an 8-day week, they say, oh, that'd be great. They would spend that time laboring away to achieve more. They're constantly trying to get ahead, to get toward a future point of happiness. So it's really important to be aware of how other people think about time. We tend to think, oh, that person's really irresponsible, or that guy's power hungry. But often, what we're looking at is not fundamental differences of personality, but really just different ways of thinking about time. Seeing these conflicts as differences in time perspective, rather than distinctions of character, can facilitate more effective cooperation between people and get the most out of each person's individual strengths.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.
All right, cool. So you must have written down your answers. Now let's review the answers. I know this is going to be really, really tough part, but again, I will emphasize on really doing a lot of practice here. This is also, again, it's about time's perspective, psychology, academic area, which may not be people may not be familiar with it. It's easier than the science one that we had previously in the previous lecture. But it's quite technical, and you have to really listen very, very carefully. And when you're listening, always remember that you're trying to absorb the information. You're trying to understand the information. Be attentive. Be also don't just listen for the sake of the test, but also try to listen for carefully. You're trying to understand it. Maybe it's a lecture. Just imagine yourself that you're sitting in a lecture room and trying to understand this lecture and you're attentively listening for it, maybe you have to retell this lecture to your friend when you finish listening. That's the mindset you need to have for such lessons. Otherwise, you will, and if you have that kind of mindset, your brain will retain a lot of information. So if you're just listening for the sake of, I want to fill that gap, you may not remember stuff as well. So that's just one piece of tip there. Let's look at the answers. So answer number 1, 31, negative, 32, pleasure, 34, poverty, 33, poverty, 34, active, 35, success, 36, B, 37, A, 38, C, 39, A, 40, B. I hope you got most of them right or correct. Let's look at the transcript. So please read the transcript in your time and see where you will get your answers from. Okay, with that, all the best. This is the conclusion of our listening series, and I will see you in the reading series next. Bye for now.